Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS NFL Week 14. We're on to Sunday. How many games you got? Looks like 12 games on the board. Gonna get to as many as I can, as always. Had a nice little Saturday conference. We saw some great games. If I got Ohio State, would have been a real nice Saturday. I ended up adding a little bit on BYU money line too, which obviously didn't work out. But yeah, profitable Saturday. Needed it too because I went 0-2 on Friday night. Yeah. NFL Sunday, Week 14. Let's talk about it. I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points? I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. All right, first up, we got Washington on the road at Minnesota. Looks like Jaden Daniels will be back for this one. I don't know if that's been 100% confirmed, but based on what everyone's saying, it looks like Jaden Daniels is going to play in this game. This will actually be the first time that Jaden Daniels is on the field with the top 3 wide receivers because Noah Brown's supposed to come back as well. So this will actually be the first time that Jaden Daniels is on the field with the top three receivers since week 2. So it's been a while since we've seen this Commanders offense at full strength. And when it comes to this Commanders offense, there's a perception that this unit isn't good. And I mean, this has been one of the more efficient offenses throughout this entire season, despite all the injuries, the changes at quarterbacks, the injuries to the wide receiver position. Despite all of that, this offense has pretty consistently moved the chains all year. They're 8th in success rate, 11th in EPA per play. You would think that this is just a mismatch for the Vikings defense. Actually, Washington's offense, in terms of efficiency, has actually been better than Minnesota's defense this year. And I think where the perception comes from about this Washington offense, I think the reason a lot of people think this Washington offense isn't good is those 2 primetime games, specifically the big game against the Chiefs. They were terrible in that game. It was their worst offensive game of the year. They lost 28-7. Their other primetime game was against Detroit. They got blown out. The offense was moving the ball in that game. The problem was more on the defensive side. But, you know, primetime games, everyone watches them, and oftentimes a primetime game will shape everyone's opinion of that team for the next month because that's the game everyone watched. So they had those 2 primetime games against the Lions and the Chiefs, and they didn't look good in either of them. So there's this perception that Washington's offense isn't good. But if you look at their last 4 games, I mean, there's a couple really misleading final scores in there. The one that jumps out, 16-13 overseas against the Dolphins. A quick glance at that final score, 16-13, you would think, offense has played terribly. Actually, in that game, the Dolphins averaged 6.7 yards per play, and the Commanders averaged like 6.2 yards per play. Both teams' success rates were over 52%. So both those teams were moving the ball fluently in that 16-13 game overseas. You look at Washington's last 4 games, they're averaging 5.7 yards per play, over 51% success rate. This team is moving the ball, and we've seen Washington play in a lot of really high-scoring games this year. Now, the reason I placed this bet before I knew for sure Jaden Daniels, spoilers, I'm on the over in this one. The reason I bet the over before I even knew Jaden Daniels was going to be playing quarterback, I bet it pretty much right. Was it a look ahead? I actually forget exactly when I bet it. But when I bet it, it was 50-50 on whether or not Jaden Daniels was coming back. And the reason I placed it without caring who was playing quarterback is we're talking about Minnesota's defense with Brian Flores. What do? They send a billion blitzes. Nobody blitzes as much as Brian Flores does. Well, Marcus Mariota has a pass rating over 111 against the blitz. In the NFL, in terms of most efficient quarterbacks this year against the blitz, it goes Drake May, Matt Stafford, Marcus Mariota. He's 3rd. So I placed this bet fully trusting Washington to score some points for me in this game, whether it was going to be Mariota at quarterback or Daniels. Now, it looks like we're going to see Jaden Daniels, and that's fine with me as well, because that's been one of Jaden Daniels' biggest strengths in his young career is dealing with the blitz, dealing with pressure. Obviously, he's a great athlete, great escapability. So when I placed this over, I was expecting Washington's offense to have some success, whether it was Mariota or Daniels. So it looks like it's going to be Jaden Daniels here. And when it comes to this Minnesota defense, obviously we know they're a great defense, right? Their strength is generating pressure, sending blitzes, and creating negative plays. When it comes to just getting off the field, we've actually seen this Vikings defense struggle a little bit. 49% success rate in the last 4 games. Now they're able to create negative plays, and that's how they get off the field. But when it comes to a team just handing the ball off, Dinkin and Duncan escaping out of the pressure, teams are able to move the chains on this Vikings defense. Look at their last 4 games. This Vikings defense has kind of been susceptible to the run recently. I was talking about this earlier this year. The Vikings defense is still great, but in terms of defending the run, they're definitely a step backwards from where they were last year. They were elite against the run last year. That hasn't been the case this year. I mean, you look at their last 4 games, they're allowing over 141 rushing yards per game, over 42% success rate, 3.88 yards per carry allowed is solid, but teams are handing the ball off and they're able to move the chains on the ground against this Vikings defense. The Washington offensive line is completely healthy. Their weapons are completely healthy outside of Austin Eckler, but he's been out all year. They're now indoors. I mean, we just saw Washington moving the ball outdoors against the Denver defense. They're now indoors. I think this Washington offense is going to move the ball and score some points in this game. Now, Washington did just lose their quarterback coach, Pritchard. He actually got the head coaching job out at Stanford. I don't think he's going to, I would imagine he's not going to finish the year with Washington. He needs to, Stanford's a mess. He needs to get started recruiting immediately. But I would imagine he's no longer with the team. But does losing a quarterback coach really move the needle? Certainly not immediately, maybe like a long-term thing. But I don't think losing the quarterback coach really affects my opinion of anything. Yeah, I think Washington's going to move the ball, and I think they'll score some points in this game on Minnesota's defense. And on the other side of the ball, tell me we're not looking at the ultimate buy low spot on this Vikings offense. I know nobody wants to trust J.J. McCarthy in the Vikings offense right now, and I can't say I even blame you. On the season, they're 27th in success rate, 29th in EPA per play, but they're playing a home game against Washington. This Washington defense, man, 28th in success rate, 30th in EPA per play. We're talking about a Vikings offense that just went through the gauntlet. In the last 2 games, they were outdoors in cold-ass, windy-ass Lambeau against the Packers defense. Then they were outdoors in nasty-ass Seattle against the Seahawks defense, arguably the best defense in the NFL. 2 nightmare spots for this Vikings offense. Now they're coming home in a dome against a Washington defense that's gotten pretty consistently run on this entire season. In their last 8 games, they're allowing 5.3 yards per carry, over 44% success rate per rush, 147 rushing yards allowed per game. The Vikings offensive line should also be in better shape here. I'm not sure on Donovan Jackson. He's listed as questionable. I'm reading it's a 50-50 on whether or not they're getting their left guard back. But it looks like Darisaw is going to be back, and Ryan Kelly's back as well. He actually came back for a few snaps last week. So Darisaw should be on the field. Ryan Kelly should be on the field. Donovan Jackson's a 50-50. Regardless, this Vikings offensive line significantly healthier than they have been the last couple weeks. And Washington might be without Bobby Wagner. And by the way, I didn't even know this when I placed the bet on the over. This is a bonus that I shouldn't say it's a bonus. I'm not rooting for the guy to get injured. I'm saying it's a bonus for my bet on the over if Bobby Wagner doesn't play in this game. He was added to the injury report. He's listed as questionable. Now, I know there are some people that are buying in on this Washington defense right now. A couple games ago, Dan Quinn took over the defensive play calling. And if you look at the final scores, it looks like Washington's defense took a huge step forward. They were allowing 35.8 points per game in their previous 5. In their last 2 games since, in their last 2 games since Dan Quinn took over the play calling, they're allowing just 21.5 points per game. So the final scores look better. But if you look at the efficiency numbers, it doesn't look that much better. They're still allowing 6.3 yards per play, success rate over 52% in their last 2 games. So maybe this Washington defense is slightly better with Dan Quinn calling the plays. And they also got Will Harris back, the safety. He came back last week. So maybe the Washington defense is slightly better, but I still think this is a bottom 5 run defense. They were a borderline bottom 5 run defense last year. They didn't really do anything to address it. They're dealing with injuries on the defensive line. And this Vikings run game was working. I know you really didn't see it in the last 2 games, just 80 rushing yards per game against Green Bay and Seattle. But they were on the road to Green Bay, on the road in Seattle, down on the scoreboard. I mean, J.J. McCarthy and then Brosmer dropping back against those pass rushes, down double. It's just a nightmare spot for the Vikings offense. If you look at the 3 games before that, Minnesota was running the football when that offensive line was healthier. 5.9 yards per carry, over 127 rushing yards per game in the previous 3 games against Detroit, Baltimore, and Chicago. So this is just a complete opposite situation. You look at J.J. McCarthy, he goes from dropping back to pass down double digits again in Lambeau Field, cold-ass, windy-ass Lambeau Field, against Micah Parsons and the Packers edge rush, to at home with run support in a dome against the Commanders defense. It's just a night and day difference. This is a Commanders secondary that's been religiously cooked through the air all year. You got elite receiving weapons there. It just doesn't get better than this as far as the best position a quarterback could be in. Home against Washington is about as good as it gets. He's going to have run support. He should have time to throw. His wide receivers should be winning their battles. If J.J. McCarthy can't throw the ball efficiently in this game, there might not be hope. So, yes, I expect Minnesota to score some points right back on Washington. I also think we should see a decent pace in this game. Washington, one of the faster-paced teams in the NFL. They're 7th. Minnesota's 16th, so they're not a particularly slow pace either. So we should see a decent pace in this one. As I said before, I'm on the over. I got 41.5, though. It's at 43.5 now. I would still play it at 43.5. I said earlier in the week that I thought it should be 44.5. So it's getting closer to where I think it should be. And in this building, this number just feels it's like super low, which is why I bet over 41.5. You look at the other games that we've seen in this building. I mean, week 10, the total was 49 against Baltimore. It was 48 in week 11 against Chicago. Chicago, run first offense, 48 was the total in that game against the Bears. And now it's only 41.5 against the Washington Commanders that run a really fast pace, that have played in so many shootouts this year. So, yeah, I jumped on that 41.5. I honestly still think it's a point or two low. So I'm on the over in this one, 41.5. I probably would still play it at 43.5. All right, let's talk Dolphins Jets. This one's in MetLife. As I'm sure you've heard, Dolphins are playing some football recently. They're 4-1 in their last 5 games, 3-2 against the number, 0-4-1 to the under. So Dolphins have been winning some low-scoring games recently, and this Miami team is, I mean, I guess we could say realistically still in the AFC playoff picture here. They're sitting at 5-7. They're winning football games. They're running the ball. They're playing some defense. 10-7 could get you in the AFC. Obviously, there's a long way to go, and then the odds are stacked against them, but they are still realistically in the AFC playoff picture here. Not a ton of room for error, and 5-7 would probably put you out in the NFC, but in the AFC, there's still a path for Miami to sneak their way into the playoffs. I mentioned the defense. I mentioned the run game. Those are the two main turnarounds for this Dolphins team. Take a look at their first 5 games. They were averaging 82 rushing yards per game, success rate per rush under 32%. Last 7 games, this team is averaging over 142 rushing yards per game, 5.2 yards per carry. In fact, Achane is now one of the NFL's leading rusher. I believe he's 3rd or 4th in the NFL. He went over 1,000 yards. Seems to be improving as well. Look at the last 3 games. Over 177 rush yards per game, 5.9 yards per carry, 48.3% success rate per rush. Now, they did play Buffalo and Washington in 2 of their last 3 games. The Saints' run defense is okay, but they did play Buffalo and Washington, 2 teams that can't defend the run. But this run game is working, and it's a lot more physical than what we've seen from McDaniel's offenses in years past. We've seen a lot of misdirection, a lot of motion. This year, we're seeing a pretty physical downhill. Well, I shouldn't even say this year. Last handful of games, we're seeing a physical downhill rushing attack here from the Dolphins, and it's working. They're winning football games. The thing is, the defense is playing well. They're running the ball well. Tua Tagovailoa is not playing well. In his last 4 games, he's got a pass rating under 78, not handling pressure well, just over 190 passing yards per game. Tua is not playing his best right now, and we're not just talking about a struggling Tua. We're talking about a struggling Tua in cold weather up in MetLife. You guys already know the deal here. Tua in his career below 50 degrees. He's 1-10 straight up, 4-6-1 against the spread. His one win, though, came against the Jets. I think it was in 2023. He beat the Jets in weather below 50 degrees. So, yeah, Tua not playing well. We're talking about Tua in cold weather. And let's be honest, this isn't a Jets team we can really sleep on right now. Their defense on the year is 8th in success rate, 27th in EPA per play. It's been better recently, but honestly, it's not just the defense. The Jets as a whole have been better recently. In their last 5 games, the Jets are 3-2, 4-1 against the spread. The Jets have been cover machines recently. They got it done for me last week. I was on Jets +3 against the Dolphins. It hasn't always looked pretty, but this Jets team is playing competitive football. And honestly, they were playing some competitive football earlier in the season as well. So they probably weren't as bad as everyone thought earlier in the season. But, yeah, they've been competitive in these games recently. Tony Adams did just get injured in the Atlanta game. he's listed as questionable. But honestly, the defensive turnaround for the Jets started when Quincy Williams came back. He came back, I think it was 3 games ago, and Jets have been playing tough against the run. Their secondary still a little vulnerable, but this Jets defense isn't bad. That being said, Miami's offense is also in better shape. Right tackle Austin Jackson, he just came back last week. He got injured in week 1, so he was out like 3 months. He's back. Also, Darren Waller is back. So it's not just the Jets defense that's a little bit healthier. Dolphins offense is in better shape as well. Now, Miami wasn't able to run the ball in this Jets defense back in week 4 when they played them. 29% success rate per rush isn't good, but this is a completely different Dolphins team. They're running the ball much better than they were earlier in the season. And also, the Dolphins were still able to get the win here because Tua actually played really well. This one was at home in Miami, where Tua always plays better. But yeah, the Dolphins weren't able to run the ball on the Jets. Does that necessarily mean the Jets can stop them here? I'm not sure, because the way the Dolphins are running the ball recently, it looks, I don't want to say unstoppable, but it looks like they can run the ball on just about anybody right now. And when it comes to this Jets defense against the run, the previous 2 games before last week against New England and Baltimore, I mean, they shut the Ravens down. The New England couldn't really run the ball on the Jets, just 2.95 yards per carry allowed in those 2 games. But last week against the Falcons, they allowed over 5.2 yards per carry, over 56% success rate per rush. They couldn't stop Bijan Robinson at all. So I think this Jets defense is pretty tough. This front 7 is pretty tough, but the way Miami's running the ball right now, I find it hard to believe that the Jets can just stop them from moving the chains. They seem to be running the ball really efficiently right now. So I think Miami should be able to run the ball, but in the cold weather, the way Tua is playing right now, I don't think we can expect a big game out of Tua throwing the ball. Now, on the other side of the ball, this might be a pretty tough matchup against the Jets. I know you look at the Dolphins' season-long numbers on the defensive side of the ball, certainly doesn't look pretty. 26 in success rate, 26 in EPA per play. The Jets offensively 21st and 27th. But just like the Dolphins' run game, this defense, complete 180. Through the first 6 games of the year, the Dolphins were allowing 6.9 yards per play. That's so terrible. Success rate over 55%. They're allowing 29 points per game. In the last 6 games, though, it's down to 5.6 yards per play allowed. Success rate just over 46%, which still isn't great, but they're allowing less than 19 points per game. So this Dolphins defense isn't elite, but compared to the first 5-6 games of the year, it's miles better. So the Dolphins defense playing at a much higher level, and specifically where they've been great is against the run. In their last 6 games, they're allowing just 4 yards per carry, under 108 rushing yards per game, 33.2% success rate per rush. So this Dolphins defense has really shored things up against the run. And if the Jets can't run the ball here, I'm not sure how much offense we can expect from this team. Not that Tyrod Taylor's been terrible. He was named the starter 2 weeks ago. We've seen him play 2 games, and the Jets were competitive in both those games. But Tyrod Taylor, 197 passing yards per game, a 77.8 pass rating from a clean pocket. Yeah, he's still a decent athlete. He has some escapability, but this is pretty much Tyrod Taylor's best fastball at this point in his career. So I'm not sure how much we could expect from Tyrod Taylor. This is a tough one. It's hard not to like an under here. Dolphins are going to be running the ball. Jets, obviously an offense that wants to run the ball. Clock should be continuously rolling. I don't trust either offense, really. So it's hard not to like an under. I would lean Miami at -2.5. This isn't one I'm overly interested in, but for the video, give me Miami -2.5, under 41.5. We got Tennessee on the road at Cleveland. Cam Ward was progressing a bit. He wasn't setting the world on fire, but he was trending in the right direction. Again, he wasn't great, but he was better than he was earlier in the season. And then last week happened. And last week, the Titans literally couldn't do anything against Jacksonville. 4 yards per play, under 31% success rate, 3 points in the game. They couldn't possibly play worse on the offensive side of the ball. Now, let's give the Jags some credit. Jacksonville's defense is playing as well as anyone in the NFL right now. It's not really getting talked about. The Jags defense is elite right now. But it's not like it gets easier for Cam Ward. They're now going on the road to Cleveland. Cleveland's defense on the year, 2nd in success rate, 4th in EPA per play. Obviously, if you own a smartphone, you know the Titans offense has been struggling. They're 31st in success rate, 31st in EPA per play. We know how tough it is to move the football and score points on the road here in Cleveland. At home this year, Cleveland's allowing 5.2 yards per play, 43.1% success rate, 17.2 points per game, which actually isn't as elite as I thought it would be. But yeah, this defense at home in Cleveland, always a tough matchup for any offense, let alone a rookie quarterback who's been having problems all year. This is a Browns defense that just took a hit, though. Malik Collins got surgery. He's out for the season. So defensive tackle there for Cleveland out for the year. I believe Devin Bush and Mason Graham are going to play. I think they were limited in practice. I don't know that for a fact, but from what I was reading, it sounds like both those guys are going to play, but no Malik Collins. He's out for the year. Not sure if the Titans can even exploit that, though. Not only is the offensive line underperformed this year, but there's no Cushenberry at center and still no Calvin Ridley. I believe Calvin Ridley's out for the year also. It's difficult to imagine Cam Ward being very effective against the Browns pass rush here on the road in Cleveland. He's struggled against the blitz. He's really struggled with pressure this year. He's got a 49.3 pass rating under pressure. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that the Titans offense should struggle here on the road against the Browns. I'm assuming you were able to figure that out on your own. And then you add in the weather situation. I mean, Cam Ward did play at Washington State for 2 years. It gets nasty up there in Pullman. So it's not like he's never played in cold weather. He's never played in bad weather. That's not the case. He played 2 years at Washington State, but on the road in Cleveland, it's tough. We might see a little bit of snow. We're going to see wind. It's tough to see the Titans having a lot of offensive success here. On the other side of the ball, though, this is where I really think Tennessee can put up a fight. What are we expecting Cleveland to do offensively in this one? Cleveland, 32nd in success rate. That's worse than the Titans. 30th in EPA per play. Titans defense isn't anything great, though. 19th and 28th. Here's the thing. This Cleveland offensive line is in a situation right now. Not only is DeJuan Jones out, he's been out all year. That's not new. But Teller and Conklin both out for this game. Cleveland missing the entire right side of their offensive line in addition to missing their left tackle who's been out all year. 3 of the original 5 starters on this Cleveland Browns offensive line are not playing in this game. And look, the Titans defense isn't anything special, but that front 7 is completely healthy. You got Jeffrey Simmons on the defensive line, Sweat, Jihad Ward, Arden Keith. All these guys are healthy. Joseph Day. All these guys are healthy and on the field. You got Shedeur Sanders in bad weather where he did not play well in the 2 bad weather games. His good game was indoors on the road in Las Vegas. The other 2 times we saw Shedeur Sanders was outdoors in nasty weather. He didn't look very good. So I think this Tennessee defensive front 7 can dominate these battles against the Cleveland offensive line. And with Shedeur Sanders in bad weather, the weakness of this Titans defense is the secondary. They struggle in coverage. They can get beat by talented wide receivers and a passing attack that spreads the field. That's not Cleveland right now, certainly not in this weather. So I really think Tennessee can win those battles up front on the defensive line. And are we expecting Cleveland to run the ball on them? We're missing 3 starters of their original 5 offensive line. In the last 6 games, Cleveland's averaging under 4 yards per carry, 30.5% success rate per rush. That's not good at all. So I'm not sure if I trust Cleveland to run the ball. I definitely don't trust Shedeur Sanders in this weather. Don't trust the Cleveland offensive line right now. I'm really not sure what I'm expecting Cleveland to do offensively in this one. And keep in mind, if you're thinking, the Cleveland defense is going to be so dominant. Yeah, that's true. The Cleveland's defense is going to be dominant. We just saw the Cleveland defense look dominant last week. They held the 49ers to 4.2 yards per play, 37.1% success rate. That's a dominant defensive performance. They still lost the game 26-8. Just goes to show you that a defense cannot win a football game by itself. Look, again, I want to be clear. I'm not expecting Cam Ward to do much here offensively, but in my opinion, this should not be more than a field goal in either direction. It's going to be a game where neither quarterback has a ton of success. It's going to come down to which quarterback can protect the football. I'm not even sure who I trust more. I will say I don't think either team should be laying more than a field goal. So I actually bet this one. It's disgusting. I'm on Tennessee plus 4.5 in this one. I know. Cam Ward on the road in Cleveland. What the hell am I doing? I'm on the Titans. I bet it. All right, Pittsburgh on the road in Baltimore for what is one of the biggest games of the week in terms of playoff implications. The AFC North is having a down year, but this is the game right here. Whoever wins this game will be in the driver's seat to win the AFC North. Long way to go because these 2 teams actually play twice. They haven't played at all yet. This is the first meeting. Obviously one of the best rivalries in the NFL. These games are always a ton of fun to watch. The Steelers have had the Ravens number slightly in recent years. This graphic says the last 10 years, but it only says 19 games. It might be the last 9 years. Yeah, I think this is the last 9 years. I'm going to mess this graphic up. But the Steelers are 12-7 in their last 19 matchups against the Ravens, 10-9 against the spread. So they haven't dominated them or anything. The Steelers have slightly had the upper hand. As far as their last 10 trips to Baltimore, they're 6-4 straight up, 6-4 against the spread. Lamar Jackson has had his share of problems against this Pittsburgh team. TJ Watt, the Steelers pass rush has definitely been able to give Lamar Jackson fits. Lamar Jackson in his career just 4-5 against the Steelers, just 162 passing yards per game, 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a 79 passer rating. Now remember, young Lamar was more of an athlete. He really developed into a better passer later in his career. So some of these numbers are from young Lamar when he was really like an elite scrambler. He didn't really develop into an elite passer until later on. So, but still, we know Lamar Jackson has had his share of problems against this Steelers team. Also, this has been a dead nut under rivalry. In fact, if you rewind 2 years ago on YouTube, we were all blindly taking the under in both these matchups. We were joking about it on the live stream. In the last 21 matchups, the under is 15-5-1. So blindly taking the under in Steelers-Ravens games has been a lucrative decision. So yeah, we usually see low-scoring games. We usually see a lot of defense. And like I said, this game's huge. In the AFC North, the Ravens and Steelers are currently tied for first place at 6-6. What an ugly division. Who would have thought coming into the season that the AFC North would be one of the worst divisions in the NFL? But that's where we're at. AFC North and NFC South, you'd have to say, right? Worst divisions in the league so far this year. But yeah, winner of this game will be in first place here in the AFC North. So without further ado, let's talk about the matchup. Pittsburgh's offense against Baltimore's defense. Do we trust the Steelers to move the ball in this game? And that's an interesting question. I've been pretty vocal about how I don't believe the Steelers offense is very good. On the season, they're 18th in success rate, 18th in EPA per play, which is fine, slightly below average. The Ravens defense 13th and 19th. The Steelers will still be without their left tackle, Broderick Jones. I believe this is the second, it might be the third game he's missed. I didn't write it down. He just got injured recently, though. This will be his second or third game out. And like I said, the Steelers offense, they're really struggling to put points up. They have a success rate over 45% in their last 5 games. So they have been able to move the chains here and there. It hasn't been a practical joke bad, but just 5 yards per play. The EPA per play looks bad. Really struggling to turn drives into points. Just 21.2 points per game in their last 5. And they're matched up against a Ravens defense that's pretty much doing the same thing this year that they did last year. If you remember last season, through 5 or 6 games, the Ravens had the worst pass defense in the NFL. They were looking like a bottom half defense. And then out of nowhere, they started playing. We're kind of seeing the same exact thing this year. Through 5 games, the Ravens were allowing over 35 points per game, 6.2 yards per play, over 53% success rate. But then they make the trade with the Chargers, that they get healthier. There's still some injuries on the defensive line, but they got healthier. In their last 7 games, they're allowing just 16.6 points per game. Now, 5.5 yards per play, 41.8% success rate. This isn't a top 5 defense or anything. This isn't the Seahawks or the Texans. It's not on that level, but this is a good defense. This, I would say, top 10. Borderline top 10, maybe top 12. So this is no longer a terrible defense. They are playing much better as the season progresses. Now, there's still injuries on the defensive line. They're out for the year. Matabike, Broderick Washington, they're still out. Everyone else on this Ravens defense is good to go, though. So other than those 2 season-ending injuries, Ravens defense is in good shape. Now, we know the weakness of this Baltimore defense has been they really struggle to generate pressure. This is a bottom 5, bottom 10 pass rush in the NFL. So Aaron Rodgers, even without their left tackle, he'll probably have some space to work with in this game. But if I'm being honest, I'm not sure how much that worries me. I mean, Aaron Rodgers really hasn't thrown the ball downfield much this game. And if you match up the Ravens secondary and the linebackers, Roquan Smith, against the Steelers receivers and their playmakers, I would take Baltimore's defensive pieces to win those battles 100 times out of 100. So, yeah, maybe they struggle to get some pressure on Rodgers, but not sure what Aaron Rodgers really does with that. He hasn't been throwing the ball downfield, like I said, so that doesn't really worry me as far as the Ravens defense goes. And I've said this a few times in the last few weeks. I don't believe the Steelers offense is very good, and that was on full display last week. A home game against the Bills. Now, Buffalo's a great team, but they've been struggling to stop the run all year. That defense hasn't been anything spectacular. And a home game against the Bills, you score 7 points, 4.2 yards per play, success rate just over 33%. That's a terrible offensive performance for Pittsburgh. Now they go on the road to Baltimore to play a Ravens defense that I perceive to be better than Buffalo's defense. They're peaking at the right time. This is a Ravens team that needs a win, coming off an ugly loss to Cincinnati. Yeah, I don't like this matchup for the Steelers offensively at all. Now, on the other side of the ball, we got to talk about this Baltimore offense, and I don't know if anyone knows what's going on. Maybe Lamar Jackson's injured still. I don't know. On the season, they're 20th in success rate, 21st in EPA per play. The Steelers' defense has had their share of problems as well, 17th and 23rd. Lamar Jackson, in his last 4 games, 65-4 passer rating. He's struggling with pressure. He's been under a lot of pressure. He's holding on to the football, which is something we used to see him do early in his career. He got better with that in the last couple of years. He's struggling making throws from a clean pocket. Lamar Jackson is not playing well. Now, I cut him some slack last week because I was like, yeah, we played Minnesota and Cleveland. Those are the 2 of the best pass rushes in the NFL. But now we've seen him struggle against the Jets and then Cincinnati. Turnovers have become a problem. I mean, there's no other way to say this. Lamar Jackson is not playing well right now. Now, does this continue on forever? Probably not. He's one of the most talented players I've ever seen. But right now, it's tough to trust Lamar. It's tough to price the Ravens out as if Lamar is playing at an MVP level because he just hasn't been in the last month. Now, one thing Baltimore has figured out or has seemed to have figured out is the run game. In the last 7 games, this actually started to come back before Lamar Jackson even came back from injury. They started to run the ball when Huntley was playing quarterback. In their last 7 games, 4.9 yards per carry, 153 rush yards per game. Success rate per rush isn't too great. EPA per rush isn't too great, indicating they might have ripped a few big runs off that are making the numbers look better than they are. But they are running the ball, which is huge. So do we think they could run the ball in this matchup against the Steelers defense? And I guess we have to say yes. I don't know what happened to the Steelers front 7. Earlier in the season, they weren't an elite run defense, but they were doing a pretty solid job against the run. They played the Colts in week 9. They were able to take Jonathan Taylor out of the game. Now the Colts kind of abandoned the run, but they were able to keep Jonathan Taylor from beating them in week 9. In their last 4 games, I mean, they're allowing over 142 rushing yards per game, 4.5 yards per carry, over 41% success rate per rush. Out of nowhere, this Steelers defense is struggling to stop the run against the Ravens rushing attack that seems to have things figured out. It hasn't been absolutely dominant, but it's been pretty good. Yeah, I think the Ravens should be able to run the ball in this game. On top of that, we've got injuries here to the Pittsburgh defense. Duggar's out. Deshaun Elliott's been out. That's not new. Derek Harmon's out on the defensive line. So the Steelers defense isn't healthy right now. Well, it's not in terrible shape, but they're missing a couple key pieces. And the Ravens offense is in great shape. Justice Hill is the new injury. He's been ruled out, but you got Derrick Henry. They also have Keaton. What's that other running back's name? Keaton. Damn it, forgot his name. You know who I'm talking about. They have a change of pace back there that could kind of play Justice Hill's role. Offensive line completely healthy. Lamar's back. Wide receivers completely healthy. So injury-wise, the Baltimore offense is in better shape than the Pittsburgh defense. Now, in terms of Lamar Jackson, I mean, he's historically had problems with the Steelers pass rush, and the Steelers have done a good job generating pressure this year, so I don't know. I don't know if this is the game Lamar Jackson snaps out of it. I do know as a whole in this one, I won't be taking Pittsburgh. I don't trust the offense at all. So even though the idea of laying 5.5 with Baltimore, the way Lamar Jackson is playing against a pass rush that has historically given him problems, even though that sounds terrifying, I can't take Pittsburgh. I don't trust Pittsburgh to move the ball. So it would only be Ravens. I see a -5.5. I'll go Baltimore -5.5. I didn't bet this one. And in terms of the total, it's kind of hard to argue with an under, right? I mean, 15-5 to the under in the last 20 matchups. I don't really trust either quarterback. I don't really trust either offense. I trust both defenses more than I trust both offenses. So how do you argue against an under? The problem is you could have got under 47.5 early in the week. It's now at 43, 42.5. So I can't tell you to bet the under right now. In fact, I think it might have moved a little too far. 42.5 for Lamar at home. Aaron Rodgers, Steelers, all they do is throw the ball. Yeah, I can't tell you to bet an under at the current number. So give me Baltimore, -5.5 for this one. All right, so we got Seattle on the road against the Falcons in Atlanta. So the Falcons lost the game to the Jets last week, which is usually rock bottom for an organization. When you lose to the Jets, it's time to make some changes. No, that's a joke. Jets actually haven't even been that bad recently. But yeah, the Falcons lose a game to the Jets last week. That being said, they were the stronger team. I appreciate them losing. I was on Jets +3, so I appreciate it. But I mean, the Falcons averaged 6.2 yards per play with a success rate up close to 57% in the game. And they allowed just 4.7 yards per play. The Jets' success rate was pretty good. The Jets were able to move the ball a little bit. But as far as which team was moving the ball more fluently in the game, no question it was Atlanta. I had the home dog at +3, so it was probably the right bet. But Atlanta was the stronger team in this game last week against the Jets. Now, just because they were the stronger team last week against the Jets, does that mean they can compete with this Seattle Seahawks team? It's a different question. Seattle offensively, 9th in success rate, 13th in EPA per play. Atlanta's defense, 24th and 17th. To be honest, I'm really not sure what I think about this matchup. The Seahawks offense against the Falcons defense. You would think this is a tough matchup for Sam Darnold. And what I mean by that, I've been talking about this the last couple weeks. There's emerging a very obvious weakness, a very obvious dent in Sam Darnold's armor. He's struggling with pressure. He's struggling against the blitz. If you remember, we're looking at this graphic, Sam Darnold splits when blitzed and when pressured. If you remember, we were looking at these numbers, say 4 or 5 weeks ago, and they were all green. He had like a 112 passer rating when blitzed, a 104 passer rating. I'm speculating. It was something crazy. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when blitzed and under pressure. And if you remember, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Sam Darnold, usually it doesn't perform like this under pressure. Well, we're seeing these numbers crash down to earth. When blitzed down to 86.4, when pressure down to 67.7. So we're seeing Sam Darnold really start to struggle with pressure, and Atlanta can definitely generate some pressure. In fact, the Falcons have sacked the quarterback 25 times in their last 5 games. So this is a Falcons team that definitely can generate some pressure. Only Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings blitz more frequently than the Falcons. So you know they're going to be blitzing the hell out of Sam Darnold. This team gets to the quarterback a lot, as I just mentioned. Sam Darnold has been sacked 3 or more times in 3 straight football games, and we've seen Sam Darnold play 4 games this year against elite pass rushes. The Steelers, the Texans, the Rams, and the Vikings. Those were by far his 4 worst games of the season. In fact, he's got a 69.1 passer rating in those 4 games. Now, do we consider the Atlanta Falcons to be on those teams' levels in terms of a pass rush? Not really sure, but in the last 2 games, the Falcons have put up great numbers against the pass. They played the Jets with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. They played the Saints with Tyler Shuck at quarterback. If you rewind to the 4 games prior to the last 2 games, I mean, they played Miami with Tua, Drake May, Daniel Jones, even Bryce Young. Atlanta was really struggling against the pass. They were getting pieced up. This secondary got kind of exposed. They allowed over 291 passing yards per game, 56.7% success rate per dropback, an average opponent pass rating over 116 in those 4 games. And I know they're able to generate pressure, and Sam Darnold has struggled under pressure this year, and he's struggling under pressure recently. I know, but this game is indoors. I don't think this Falcons secondary is very good. Maybe getting D. Alford back helps, but like I said, I kind of think Sam Darnold's going to play well in this game, even though I don't have a ton of reasoning behind it. Atlanta runs a ton of single high safety looks, 64% of their defensive snaps are in single high safety. Sam Darnold over 110 passer rating against single high safety. Atlanta blitzes a lot. They run a very aggressive defense. I think Sam Darnold should have plenty of opportunities to connect on big throws. Smith and Jigba only had 23 yards receiving last week. I bet you they give him a few shots deep on this single high safety look. Yeah, I think Sam Darnold's going to play well, but again, I don't really have the best reasoning for it. I hate going with the I got a feeling, but I think Sam Darnold's going to play well in this dome. Now, as far as Atlanta's defense against the run, is it good now? I mean, they were getting lit up on the ground. They couldn't stop anybody from running the ball. First 9 games, they were allowing over 5 yards per carry, over 147 rush yards per game. In their last 3, maybe it's getting Diablo back at linebacker, but they've really shored things up. They're allowing less than 3.3 yards per carry, 32.6% success rate per rush. Those are excellent. So the Falcons' run defense seems to be coming around. Like I said, they do have Diablo back. A couple injury concerns on the defensive line, but maybe the defense is a little bit healthier. Seattle's also had their problems running the ball all year. Their center, Sundell, is going to miss another one. Still no Torrey Horton. So if you want to tell me Atlanta's able to keep Seattle from running the ball, I can get with that. And if you want to tell me they're able to get Sam Darnold to the ground a few times and kill some drives, I can get with that as well. But you're not going to convince me that Sam Darnold won't connect over top to Smith and Jigba or somebody once or twice in this game. So I think Darnold does make a few huge throws in this one. Now, on the other side of the ball, this is where I just don't know how Atlanta competes in this game. Now, their offensive numbers on the year look all right. They're 11th in success rate, 17th in EPA per play, but they're up against a Seattle defense that, I mean, Seattle's probably a top 3 defense in the NFL. I think most people would agree with that. They're 4th in success rate, 3rd in EPA per play. They've been doing most of this, missing a couple starters, and they're both back. Julian Love set to return for this one. Jerron Reed on the defensive line set to return for this one. So the Seahawks have been arguably a top 2 or 3 defense in the NFL, missing 2 starters, and they're both coming back for this game. So where's the path to Atlanta doing anything offensively in this game against this defense? Kirk Cousins is playing quarterback, and Kirk Cousins does one thing well at this point in his career. He makes quick reads. He can pick up blitz packages quick, make the read, get the ball out. He's got over a 111 pass rating against the blitz this year. Here's the problem. Seattle doesn't blitz much. They're able to generate pressure with just their front 4. In fact, without blitzing, they're still first in the NFL in time to pressure. So Seattle's more than capable of getting pressure on Kirk Cousins without blitzing, which is not what you want to see if you plan on betting the Falcons in this one. There's also no Drake London in this game. There was speculation that he might return. Yeah, he's been ruled out. So in addition to being under fire here, Kirk Cousins also won't have Drake London as a safety net. You don't like that. Now, one thing you do like if you're betting Atlanta, they have been running the ball. They finally seem to have figured out the run game. They're finally getting Bijan Robinson going. In their last 4 games, they're averaging 4.7 yards per carry, over 49% success rate per rush, over 138 rush yards per game. This is solid. Atlanta's finally running the ball. I do question the defenses a little bit. Colts defense has been all right recently. Carolina's kind of fallen off. Saints defense is pretty solid. Jets defense has been all right. So they haven't played absolutely terrible competition, but they haven't played elite competition either. Do we think they're going to run the ball in Seattle? Serious question. I mean, it's at home. Seattle's flying across the country. Maybe they're able to run the ball a little bit, but no one's really run the ball on the Seahawks defense this year. On the year, they're allowing 3.9 yards per carry, 30.1% success rate per rush, a negative EPA per rush. So when a team hands the ball off against the Seahawks defense, on average, they have a lower chance of scoring points on that drive than before they handed the ball off. That's absolutely elite. They're allowing 89.2 rush yards per game. So even though this Atlanta Falcons offensive line is healthy, and they have a pretty good offensive line, so even though they have the healthy offensive line, the run game's coming around, and they're at home, Seahawks flying across the country, I still don't know if I'm comfortable counting on the Falcons to run the ball on this Seahawks defense. But if you're betting Atlanta, that's your path. Seahawks flying across the country, coming off a big win over the Vikings, a dominant win. Now they're indoors, a little bit of a different environment against a good offensive line. So I could see that path. In my opinion, if I was betting Atlanta, that's what I would be counting on. I would say I think the Falcons could run the ball in the game. Also, Kirk Cousins, much better numbers against zone, much better numbers against 2-eye safety. So maybe Kirk Cousins can make throws against the Seahawks zone coverage. I suppose there's a path there. As far as betting this game, this is an ugly one. We talked about this one on the live stream. I said under, so I guess I'll put under up. I honestly think at 6.5, if you force me to bet a side, I would take Seattle, but I'm not betting this game. Give me Seattle and under for the video, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't get anywhere with this one. Indianapolis on the road in Jacksonville for what is another huge division game. We got a few of these. Bears-Packers as well. Few huge division games this week. Colts take the huge loss last week to Houston. It's actually their first time held to under 20 points all season. They've actually been held to 20 points or less, though, in 3 of their last 4. So they've been held to 20 points exactly a couple times recently. Colts offense hasn't looked quite as potent last handful of weeks. So they're looking to get back in the win column here, and they're going to a building they don't like to go to. Colts fans know what I'm talking about. The Jacksonville curse. 10 straight losses in road games against the Jags. Now, one of these 10 was actually overseas in London. So it's really 9 straight losses in this building, but 10 consecutive road losses to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just 1-9 against the spread. The last time the Colts beat the Jags on the road, Andrew Luck threw for 370 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's what was going on with the Colts the last time they won a road game against the Jags. Andrew Luck went off in the game. Like I said, this is a huge game, and it's crazy. We've seen the Colts kind of come back down to earth recently. Entering the month of November, check this out. So entering the month of November, the Colts had the best record, not in this division, in the entire AFC. So entering the month of November, the Colts had the best record in the entire AFC. Now they're in a position where if they lose this game and the Texans win on Sunday Night Football, they'll be in 3rd place in their own division. So entering November, they had the best record in the AFC, and they're 1 loss and a Houston win away from being in 3rd place in their own division. So yeah, Colts really need to get back on track here. Turnovers have to be a focal point for Indianapolis in this one. In games when they win the turnover battle, they're undefeated, a perfect 6-0. In games where they don't win the turnover battle, they're just 2-4. The reason I'm bringing that up, Jacksonville, third in the NFL defensively in terms of takeaways. So Colts really need to protect the football in this one. And speaking of the Colts offense, I mean, Colts fans, answer in the comments. Are you concerned here? It's only been a few games. Maybe you say, hey, we're not panicking, but last 2 games, 18 points per game, 5.5 yards per play, success rate under 41%. Look at the rushing numbers from the last 2 games. 3.9 yards per carry, under 37% success rate per rush, under 81 rushing yards per game. We've now seen Jonathan Taylor neutralized in 3 of the last 4 Colts games, against the Steelers, against the Chiefs, and against the Texans. Colts averaged 72 rushing yards per game in those 3 as a team, just 3.6 yards per carry. So we've seen Jonathan Taylor kind of taken out of the game in 3 of their last 4 games. That's concerning. If you're a Colts fan, that's kind of the bread and butter of your offense. You guys need to get Jonathan Taylor going in this one. And if you're thinking, oh, well, Kyle, it's the Steelers, the Chiefs, and the Texans. Those are really tough defenses. Okay, I suppose that's fair. Those are some tough defenses. What are we calling Jacksonville then? Because on the season, they're 12th in success rate, 8th in EPA per play. They're actually looking like one of the strongest run defenses in the NFL. They're 2nd in success rate per rush, 10th in EPA per rush. Keep in mind, we're in, week 14 now? It's not like we're in week 4. We're like, the Jags run defense will come back down to earth. We're getting close to the playoffs. They're a top 5 run defense here. So it's not like things are getting easier for this Colts rushing attack that's kind of faltering as of late. Now, on the season, the Colts were so dominant early that they're still arguably the most efficient rushing attack in the NFL on paper. They're 2nd in success rate per rush, 1st in EPA per rush. But this is a Colts team that needs to get things going offensively. They need to turn things around. Jacksonville's top 5 run defense might not be the best opponent for them, especially in a building where they haven't won since Obama was president. So, yeah, it's a little bit concerning here for the Colts offense. Now, the Jags defense did just lose Wingard. That's one of their safeties. I believe he's 2nd on the team in tackles. So that's huge if you're a Colts fan. I don't want to say you're rooting for injuries, but definitely good that one of their main tacklers are out in this game. But this Jags defense might be getting Trayvon Walker back. They might be getting Eric Murray back as well. So even though they just took a loss at safety, Jacksonville actually might be healthier on the defensive side of the ball. Now, the criticism of this Jags defense, we were just talking about how on paper they're a top 5 run defense this year, and that's true. If you look at their body of work, they have played a lot of games against some bad offenses. Look at their last few. I mean, the Titans can't run the ball. Cardinals can't run the ball. Houston can't really run the ball, even though they did against the Jags. Raiders can't run the ball at all. They did keep the Rams from running it, though. Back in Week 7, they held the Rams to 93 yards rushing in the game, 3.7 yards per carry. They kept Seattle from running the ball. Not that the Seahawks have a dynamic rushing attack. Chiefs were able to run the ball on them. They went to San Francisco, took Christian McCaffrey out of the game. So the body of work, yeah, there's some easy data points on here, but there's also some impressive games. This Jags defense, especially the front 7, definitely earned our respect. Where I think this Jacksonville defense might be a little bit vulnerable is in the secondary. So do we think Daniel Jones can exploit that? Daniel Jones hasn't looked all that great recently, and I mean, we're talking about rain. It's supposed to be raining here. So do we really trust Daniel Jones in a road game when he might not be 100% healthy? I'm not sure the situation with that. Might not even have run support in the rain, because I certainly don't. And honestly, when it comes to this Jags defense, we were just talking about how on paper they're a top 5 run defense. Well, I don't think this Jags defense is getting enough respect. In their last games, they're allowing 4.5 yards per play, success rate under 40%. And remember, they turned the ball over 4 times in the Arizona game and gifted them, it was either 14 or 17 points. If you take out overtime of that game, in their last 3 football games, this is crazy, the Jags have allowed 619 yards total. 619 total yards in their last 3 football games. Yes, they played the Cardinals and the Titans in there, but they also played the Chargers. In their last 3 games, the Jags have allowed 619 total yards. That's what, just over 200 yards a game? I don't think people realize how well this Jacksonville defense is playing right now. And a Colts offense that's trending in the wrong direction. Daniel Jones trending in the wrong direction. This is a Colts offense that needs to run the ball. Jacksonville's been lights out against the run. I think we're going to see Indianapolis struggle to move the ball in this game. But on the other side, this is where I actually like the matchup for the Colts. And I know you might be thinking, what do you mean you like the matchup for the Colts defense? Yeah, I do. This Colts defense has actually looked all right in the last few weeks. On the season, they're 23rd in success rate, 11th in EPA per play. Jags offense 17th and 19th. When Buckner went down, the Colts got run on in the Atlanta game overseas. Remember that game early in the morning, overseas? That was their first game they played without Buckner on the field. The Falcons were able to run the ball on him. So what I said, and I think a lot of people were saying, like, we can't trust this Colts run defense right now. It was already a shaky run defense. Then they lose arguably their most important piece in the middle there in DeForest Buckner. Well, they've played 2 games since then, and they've looked great against the run. In their last 2 games, without DeForest Buckner on the field, they're allowing 3.4 yards per carry, 36.2% success rate per rush. So they lose DeForest Buckner. They have one shaky game against the Falcons overseas, and then they've actually looked on point against the run. 128 rushing yards per game allowed, but teams have been running the ball a lot. They're just not having a ton of success against this Colts defense. And the Jags' rushing numbers on the year look great. If you look at their year-long numbers, they look like a top 10 rushing attack in terms of efficiency. But if you actually just isolate it to their last 4 games, it doesn't look good at all. 3.9 yards per carry, under 30% success rate per rush. This Jags run game is trending in the wrong direction, and this Colts run defense is trending in the right direction. And this Jacksonville offensive line just can't seem to catch a break here. They got back Anton Harrison at right tackle. Then McCarry went down at right guard. Now they're getting back McCarry, and now Walker Little, their starting left tackle, is out. So 3 different offensive linemen, they're rotating in and out. We have another injury to the Jags offensive line here. I don't think the Jags are going to be able to run the ball on this Colts defense. The Colts have looked pretty strong on this side of the ball recently. And you might be thinking, well, Kyle, with no Sauce Gardner, the Colts are vulnerable to the pass. Okay, that might be true, but you trust Trevor Lawrence to exploit that in the rain? I know he looked pretty good last week against the Titans. It was against the Titans. 229 yards, passer rating over 111. Look at the first 11 games of the year. We're just going to forget those? He had an 80.1 passer rating. He was averaging less than 219 passing yards per game. Trevor Lawrence, as a whole, hasn't been playing very well this year. And if he doesn't have run support, look, the Colts don't have much of a pass rush. So even without run support, Trevor Lawrence should have some clean pockets to throw from. I don't really know if I trust Trevor Lawrence in the rain to take advantage of having clean pockets. He's got an 88.7 passer rating from a clean pocket and a 3.3 turnover-worthy play rate. That's a lot from a clean pocket. So no, I don't trust Trevor Lawrence to exploit where I think the Colts defense might be vulnerable, especially in the rain. In my opinion, we should see a lot of running the football in this game. Colts are already 3rd in the NFL in rushing frequency. The Jags are 12th in the NFL in rushing frequency. So these are already 2 teams that want to run the football. And in the fact that there's some weather situations and neither team really trusts their quarterback right now. I think both of these teams believe they can win this game on the ground. So I think we're going to see a lot of running. I think the clock should be continuously rolling. I like this under. I actually doubled down on it. I took the under at 48.5. Then I bet it again at 47. Oh, it's down to 45.5 now. It was down at 46.5. 45.5 might be pushing it. If you can still get a 46.5, I'd do it. But I'm on under 48.5, and I'm on under 47.5 in this one. All right, Saints are on the road in Tampa. The Bucs are currently sitting in first place in the NFC South, but they can't afford to play around here. Carolina's just a half game back. They actually play the Panthers in 2 of their last 3 games, I believe. They still have to play Carolina twice the remainder of the season. So we got 2 huge games coming up between the Bucs and Panthers. Obviously, the Bucs can't afford to take this one lightly. Not that they would anyway. These 2 teams hate each other. They absolutely hate each other. The Saints are obviously sitting at 2-10. I believe this is the Saints' worst start to a season since 1980. I think I read that. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure it's their worst start since 1980. The Saints would love nothing more than to just spoil the Bucs season right here. So yeah, this is a rivalry. This should be a heated matchup. We've seen a lot of fights. Remember the Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore days. So yeah, should be a heated one. As far as the Saints offense goes, I think it's safe to say the Saints might have the worst offense in the NFL. I think Tennessee has surpassed them, and even Cleveland, I think, has surpassed them. Last 2 games, 4.6 yards per play, 13.5 points per game. Success rate is over 47%. And you know what? Tyler Shuck has shown signs of improvement. It's just the offensive line and the lack of a running game. It's not so much a testament to Tyler Shuck as it is the surrounding pieces there. Remember, we already saw Tyler Shuck get a shot at this Tampa Bay defense, and it did not go well. Saints scored 3 points in the game. 4.8 yards per play is absolutely terrible. 41.5% success rate in the game. That was also at home in the Superdome. Now they're going on the road to Tampa against a Bucs team that's going to be hungry for a win. Like we just said, the Bucs need to win this game. They can't afford to play around here. On the season, the Saints offensively 24th in success rate, 28th in EPA per play. Bucs defense 22nd and 12th. I very seriously doubt the Saints are going to be able to run the ball in this game. Also, I had mentioned earlier in the week that I thought it was going to rain. It looks like the rain should stop before the game starts, and then it should start again later in the day. So obviously you guys know how weather reports are. They're crazy. So there's a chance that this game actually falls in between the two rain storms that are coming here. So we're not sure. But either way, it should be a pretty nasty day. If it isn't raining during the game, it will have just stopped before, and it's supposed to rain. It might even start raining during the game. So there's some weather concerns here. But either way, like I said, I don't expect the Saints to be able to run the ball in this one. No Alvin Kamara, obviously no Kendre Miller. He's been out for a while. No Eric McCoy, their star center. And then probably their best remaining offensive lineman, Fuaga, has been ruled out as well. So remember, this is a Saints team that traded Trevor Penning, who was another one of their offensive line starters. So of their original starting 5 on the offensive line, just 2 remain right now. This offensive line is not playing very well at the moment. And the Bucs defense is in the complete opposite situation. They're actually in great shape. They just got Jamel Dean back from injury last game. They just got Hassan Reddick back from injury last game. So with the exception of Cansey, who's pretty much been out this entire season, the Bucs defense is fully healthy here. And you already know Todd Bowles is going to be sending the house after Tyler Shuck in this one, because that's what Todd Bowles does. Every single year, you can pretty much hang your hat on the Bucs being top 5 in blitz rate. Not really sure what I expect Tyler Shuck to do. If there's bad weather, forget it. But even if the weather's all right here in Tampa, should be a really difficult matchup for the Saints offensively. And that's not anything new for New Orleans. The Saints have not scored 20 points in a football game since week 5. They haven't scored 20 points since week 5. In fact, they've only scored 20 or more points twice this entire season. So the fact that this is a real tough matchup for the Saints offensively, not anything new. Pretty much every single week is a tough matchup for the Saints offensively. But this particular matchup against a Bucs defense that's elite against the run, against a Bucs defense that's going to be blitz heavy, the way to beat this Bucs defense is exploit the secondary. And I'm just not sure the Saints are equipped to do that. We don't even know if Olave is playing in this game. So, you probably didn't need me to tell you it's a really rough matchup for the Saints offensively. But on the other side of the ball, at what point in the season do we admit that Tampa Bay's offense just might not be that good? We're in week 14, and trust me, I'm aware they've been very injured. So if you're a Bucs fan screaming at the screen like, we've been injured. No, I know. I'm just saying, we're now in week 14, and this offense is 25th in success rate, 20th in EPA per play. In terms of efficiency, this is a bottom 10 offense in the NFL. The Saints defense has actually been better than the Bucs offense this year. 20th in success rate, 16th in EPA per play. Now, good news for Tampa Bay. Looks like they finally figured the run game out. Last 4 games, 4.8 yards per carry, over 43% success rate per rush, over 134 rushing yards per game. If you remember earlier in the season, the Bucs were really, really struggling to run the ball. And now you got Bucky Irving back on the field, in addition to Sean Tucker, who's kind of emerged as a nice player for that Bucs offense. Problem is, you rewind back to the game against the Saints before the run game kick started up. They couldn't run the ball on New Orleans. They averaged just 3 yards per carry, under 28% success rate per rush. And that's not weird. Defending the run is the strength of the Saints defense. In fact, that's kind of the only thing they do well, is defend the run. So the only thing the Bucs have had consistent success with the last few games is running the football. I'm not sure if I trust them to run the football on the Saints. Like I said, the defending the run is pretty much the only thing the Saints are decent at. So I'm not sure if I expect the Bucs to be able to run the ball in this game. The Saints defensive front 7 are completely healthy. Now, there's no Justin Reed at safety, which could hurt. It's one of their main tacklers. But in terms of the linebackers and the defensive line, they're completely healthy, completely good to go for this one. Yeah, I think the Bucs are going to struggle to run the ball. Now, in terms of Baker Mayfield throwing the ball, I suppose the good news would be Chris Godwin is back. That's not new. He's been back a couple games. Ibuka's healthy. It looked like Mike Evans and McMillan both had a chance to play in this game. In fact, I believe they were both activated off the IR. But unless I read incorrectly, I don't think they're going to be playing in this one. It looks like they could be back as soon as next week. So that's good news for the Bucs, but I don't think they're playing in this game. Tristan Wirfs has been added to the injury report. I actually think he got injured during practice. So they might be missing arguably their best offensive lineman in this game. And when it comes to Baker Mayfield, I mean, I don't know if it's his health. I don't know what exactly is going on, but let's just call a spade a spade. He's not playing well. In his last 6 games, a 75.6 passer rating. And what we've been seeing from Baker Mayfield is very uncharacteristic. He's struggling with pressure. He's struggling from a clean pocket. He's indecisive. He's putting the ball in harm's way. Well, that's not Baker Mayfield's always kind of a gunslinger. He always took risks, but he's putting the ball in harm's way. Yeah, Baker Mayfield just flat out isn't playing very well right now. And look, a home game against the Saints struggle to generate pressure. Should be a good matchup for a quarterback, but you know what the Saints do a lot of? They don't generate a ton of pressure, but you know what they do a lot of? They blitz. Baker Mayfield, 73.6 passer rating against the blitz so far this year, 5.2 yards per pass attempt, over 24% off-target throw rate when blitzed. Baker Mayfield has had all kinds of problems handling blitz packages this year, and the Saints defense does blitz a lot. And keep in mind, the Bucs may have beaten the Saints 23-3 when they played earlier in the season, but the Bucs offense didn't do shit in that game. I mean, the Bucs won that game by 20 points because of the turnovers and because the Saints offense was so hilariously bad. That's why the final score was 23-3. The Bucs offense averaged 4.5 yards per play. Success rate was under 36%. So the Bucs offense couldn't do anything in this Saints game. Now, they were more injured. They're a little bit healthier now than they were back then, but I'm not sure I trust this Bucs offense to consistently move the ball. I thought the Bucs offense would look better last week home against the Cardinals. It really didn't. They were having some problems against the Cardinals. They converted a couple of red zone trips, which is big, but this offense just isn't very good right now. And I actually think the Saints defense is somewhat respectable. You know, they're going to be fired up. It's a rivalry game. I think both offenses are going to struggle to move the ball. When I placed this bet, I thought there was a chance of rain, but I still got on a good number. So I actually bet this 3 times. One of them was by accident. But I'm on under 43.5, under 43, and under 42.5. Those are the 3 bets I made. It's down at 41.5 now. If you can get a 42. But yeah, I'm on the under. Got a slightly better number, though, in this one. If I was to bet a side, I don't hate the Saints. I really don't like the matchup for their offense, so not really trying to get involved, but I don't hate a play on the Saints here. I think the defense could play well. We got the Cincinnati Bengals on the road in Buffalo, and we all know what happened last week on Thanksgiving night. Joe Burrow returns, and it was awesome. Well, it was awesome for us because we were all on the Bengals. Final score 32-14. Joe Burrow comes back. They go into Baltimore and beat the Ravens comfortably. It's important to point out, though, the Bengals offense didn't play that well in that game. I know you look at the final score, Joe Burrow's back. You're probably thinking, the Bengals are so back. I mean, not really. 4.9 yards per play, success rate under 42%. That is not very impressive. The Bengals scored 32 points because the Ravens turned the ball over 115 times. No, they turned the ball over 5 times in the game. That's why the Bengals scored so many points, because the Ravens kept gifting them points. In fact, the Bengals, they were held to field goals, I think, on 3 trips to first and goal. If I'm not mistaken, they were actually struggling in the red zone. So, in fact, the Bengals offense could have scored more than this. It wasn't an overly impressive performance from the Bengals offense is the point I'm making. That being said, I have faith in Cincinnati going on the road to Buffalo and moving the football in this game. Remember, this Bengals offense this year, slightly different than Cincinnati offenses that we've seen in past years. Always a pass-heavy offense, and they're still a pass-heavy offense this year. But when they've handed the ball off so far this season, they've had a ton of success. They're a top 5 rushing attack in terms of efficiency this year. 5th in success rate per rush, 3rd in EPA per rush, and recently we've even seen them lean more into the run game. And matched up against a Buffalo defense that's struggled to stop the run for years. That's always the weakness of this Buffalo defense. They're 25th in success rate per rush, 30th in EPA per rush. If you look at the Bengals' offensive numbers from their last 6 games, you can see this isn't some flash in a pan. We're talking about a 6-game sample here. Cincinnati's averaging 5.4 yards per play, over 48% success rate per rush, over 122 rush yards per game. The Bengals can run the ball, and the Bills struggle to stop the run. In addition to that, the Buffalo's also dealing with injuries on this side of the ball, which it's kind of been the story with this defense all year. No Bernard, no Ed Oliver. Joey Bosa is now out for the Buffalo defense. And then Taylor Rapp, he's been injured since, I think, week 2. He's been out pretty much the entire season. So key pieces missing from this Bills defense. And on the Cincinnati side, this is the healthiest the Bengals offense has been in what feels like years, maybe this entire season. T. Higgins is back as well. So you got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, and P. Ryan both healthy. The offensive line is completely healthy. This Bengals offense is in great shape. Now, in terms of Joe Burrow throwing the ball, I don't necessarily love the matchup for him on the road in cold-ass Buffalo. This Bills defense, they struggle against the run, but this isn't a defense that gets picked apart through the air very often. In their last 6 games, they're allowing under 174 passing yards per game, 6.5 yards per pass attempt, under 44% success rate per dropback. Their numbers against the pass are solid. So it's supposed to be windy. There may even be snow. I'm not expecting Joe Burrow to go nuts here, but I do expect Cincinnati to run the ball. And if you give Joe Burrow some run support with those receivers, kind of take a little bit of the pressure off his shoulders, kind of like what we saw last week. The defense forced turnovers. They were running the ball. They didn't make Joe Burrow go out there on the road in Baltimore and throw the ball 50 times. I think the Bengals offense, the way they're running the ball, I think they're able to take some pressure off of Joe Burrow. I think Cincinnati's able to stay on the field and sustain drives in this game. Now, on the other side of the ball, obviously, we have a mismatch here. Buffalo's offense, 7th in success rate, 5th in EPA per play. Cincinnati's defense, maybe the worst in the NFL. They're dead last in success rate, 31st in EPA per play. They definitely have looked better since the bye week. Not good, just better. Through the first 9 games, I believe they were on pace to be the worst defense in NFL history. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure I heard someone say that before the bye week, they were on pace to be the worst defense in NFL history, allowing over 33 points per game, 6.7 yards per play. You can see in the last 3 games, success rate slightly better, yards per play slightly better, EPA per play way better, probably because of the turnovers. But look at the points per game, just 24.7. That's what happens when you run the football and stay on the field and actually let your defense rest and don't make them stay on the field all game. So the fact that the Bengals are running the ball, the fact that I think they can sustain drives, just automatically puts the defense in a much better position. Again, I'm not saying the defense can be relied on in any way, but if you look at their last 3 games, we're definitely seeing an improvement, and look specifically at their numbers against the run. In their last 3 games against the Steelers, Patriots, and Ravens, by the way, it's not like they played the Saints. They played a playoff team and 2 borderline playoff teams. In those 3 games, they allowed just 4.4 yards per carry. Under 36% success rate per rush is great. Under 115 rushing yards per game. So this Bengals defense, no question, looks better. Again, I'm not saying we can rely on the defense. I'm just saying it doesn't really look like the worst defense in the NFL by far anymore. Now, does that mean they can make stops against the Buffalo Bills offense in Buffalo? Probably not, especially considering the Bills are probably getting Deion Dawkins back at left tackle, and they might even be getting Spencer Brown back at right tackle as well. Still no Joshua Palmer. Dalton Kincaid listed as questionable. Look, I don't love this one, but I did bet it. I'm on Cincinnati plus 6.5. It just seems to me that the market is still pricing the Cincinnati Bengals like a bad football team. And with a healthy Joe Burrow, with run support and those receivers, I mean, this would be a borderline playoff team if we had this if we had this lineup on the field the entire year. I know we all thought Joe Flacco was playing well. He really wasn't. He had one good game. I mean, keep in mind, they've had virtually no quarterback play this entire year. So with Joe Burrow on the field, this team is so much better. And the idea that these 2 teams would be 6.5 points apart, even in Buffalo, it's kind of crazy. I know the Bengals defense is bad. It's not like the Bills defense has been great. In fact, they're a borderline bottom 5 run defense. So yeah, I think that's too many. Look, I know Joe Burrow didn't set the world on fire last week. It's not a bet I particularly love. I actually think it's going to be a popular one. Not that I really care about that. But yeah, I'm on Bengals plus 6.5. If it wasn't going to be snowing, I wouldn't hate an under 53.5 as well. Those Snovers, man, they always seem to find a way up and over the total. But I expect both teams to be running the football. Clock should be continuously rolling. So I don't hate an under, but the bet I actually placed, Cincinnati plus 6.5. We got Chicago on the road in Green Bay for another huge division game here. And we got 2 teams coming off statement road wins here. The Bears extend their winning streak to 5. They've now won 9 of their last 10. There was some criticism on the strength of schedule. The wins didn't always look pretty. They beat up on some bad teams. Well, they just went into Philadelphia and bullied the Super Bowl champions. 24-15 was the final score. They were the better team start to finish. Loved every second of it. I was on Bears plus 7. Loved the game. Statement win here for the Bears. And same thing goes for Green Bay. I mean, to go on the road to Ford Field, complete the season sweep of Detroit on Thanksgiving. Goff even played pretty well in the game, and this Packers offense looked great. So both these teams coming off statement road wins. I just mentioned how the Bears have won 9 of their last 10. They've been a gold mine to bet on. Chicago, 8-2 against the spread in their last 10. However, they're heading into a building where the Bears have not had a lot of success in Lambeau. If you're an NFC North fan, you already know this. Just 1-8 in their last 9 trips. Now, we should probably mention, though, that they won their last trip here, January 2025, January that just passed, week 18 last year. Chicago went on the road and won in Lambeau, snapping an 8-game losing streak. Kind of a weird data point. So the Packers were playing for seeding. They were already locked into the wild card. They were still playing for seeding, but it wasn't the most meaningful game in the world for Green Bay. And also, Jordan Love got hurt in the game. Malik Willis finished out the football game. Now, to be fair to the Bears, when Jordan Love got hurt, it was actually 14-3 Chicago. So the Bears were winning the game. I don't want to say comfortably because it was only, I think, the second quarter. But the Bears were up 14-3 when Jordan Love got hurt. But it was kind of it's week 18. The Packers had already clinched a playoff spot. Kind of a weird data point. But the losing streak in Lambeau has been snapped. Week 18 last year. So let's go ahead and talk about this year's matchup. Chicago's offense is officially a top 5 rushing attack in terms of efficiency, 3rd in success rate per rush, 4th in EPA per rush. Green Bay's defense, solid numbers against the run on the year, 11th in success rate per rush, 6th in EPA per rush. Not 100% sure if I trust this run defense right now. They did a great job on the road in Detroit on Thanksgiving. The Lions' offensive line was injured, but we still got to give Green Bay some credit. It's not easy to go into Ford Field and stop Gibbs and Montgomery in that Lions rushing attack, even with an injured offensive line, and they did it. Held the Lions to under 4 yards per carry, 30% success rate per rush. I don't want to just forget, though, that in the 5 games prior to that Thanksgiving game, we were seeing the Packers get run on. They weren't getting steamrolled or anything, 4.25 yards per carry allowed, over 43% success rate per rush, but that does seem to be the weakness of this Packers defense, is defending the run. And we're talking about our Bears rushing attack, top 5 in efficiency, and keep in mind, this Green Bay defense just lost a starter on the defensive line for the year. Devontae Wyatt out for the season. So they just lost one of their main defensive tackles there in the middle. This Bears rushing attack, there was a lot of criticism, and I'm guilty of this. I said this myself. They were running the ball on Washington, the Saints, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Giants. That's who they were racking up these rushing numbers on. And I was like, all right, cool, this Bears run game looks good, but I do have to question the competition. Well, they shut that up because in their last 3 games, they played the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Eagles in Philly. Averaged 4.8 yards per carry, over 45% success rate per rush, 174 rushing yards per game in their last 3. They just went on the road to Philadelphia and bullied the Eagles' defensive front. So I think they silenced all the criticism about their strength of schedule, how they played some bad defenses. This Bears rushing attack seems to be running the ball on everybody. Now, in terms of Caleb Williams throwing the ball, this is where I'm a little bit less confident in the Bears offense. Not that he's been bad per se, but no Rome Odunze, going on the road to Lambeau, missing one of your main receivers. Now, we did just see Jared Goff have a successful game throwing the ball against Green Bay, and there were significant players missing from the Lions offense. St. Brown got injured in the first quarter. I think it was the first or second series of the game where St. Brown got injured. They were missing offensive linemen. Jared Goff had a passer rating over 139 throwing the ball in this Green Bay defense. Little bit of a different situation. That was indoors in a dome at Ford Field, not outdoors in cold-ass Lambeau. Now, it's actually supposed to be a nice day in Green Bay, not a ton of wind. It's going to be obviously really cold, but not a ton of wind. So weather's actually supposed to be all right for Green Bay December standards. But I trust this Packers defense against the pass much more at home in Lambeau than I do on the road in a dome. So this should be a challenge for Caleb Williams. We definitely do need to give Caleb Williams some credit, though. You remember what he was struggling with last year, the pressure, so many dumb sacks, so many mistakes. He would use his crazy athleticism and escape the pocket, escape the pressure, then do something terrible afterwards. He's been much better with it. His numbers under pressure are still pretty ugly looking, a 54.3 passer rating. But what doesn't show up in this graphic, he's taking far less dumb sacks. He's making far less dumb mistakes. Caleb Williams is at the point in his career where I trust him not to lose the game now. Where do I trust him to go into Lambeau and win the game through the air? Probably not right now, but I trust Caleb Williams to not do anything stupid and not lose the game, which is not what I would have said last year. So Caleb Williams deserves some credit. If you're a football fan, you know exactly what I'm saying by that. So Caleb Williams deserves some credit. He is handling pressure better this year. Like I said, I don't expect him to go into Lambeau and have a monster day throwing the ball, but I do think Chicago can run it, and I do think Caleb's capable of managing the offense here on the road. Now, what about on the other side of the ball? This is where, in my opinion, we have just a mystery. You look at the year-long graphics, and it looks like Green Bay should absolutely light the Bears defense up. You know what? Maybe they will. On the season, Green Bay is third in success rate, first in EPA per play. The Bears defense, 25th and 20th. But the thing is with this Bears defense, the injuries have been so crazy, and they're now healthier than they've been in weeks, that I really don't have any idea how good or how bad this Bears defense is right now. Remember, Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon came back last week. They were out for weeks, several weeks, couple months even. TJ Edwards is now back. Noah Sewell is now back. Neither of these guys played last week. Remember, this Bears defense went on the road to Philadelphia, shut the Eagles down, missing all three of their linebackers. They were actually missing their top four linebackers in the game. Shut the Eagles down. Now they get TJ Edwards back. Now they get Noah Sewell back. There's still no Tremaine Edmonds, and there's still no Tyreek Stevenson. But remember, they also have CJ Gardner-Johnson, not pictured in this graphic. So this Bears defense way healthier than it has been in months. And TJ Edwards coming back. Now, this might be a little bit nitpicky, but check this out. We know the glaring weakness of this Bears defense all year has been stopping the run, right? Their numbers against the run this year are pretty awful. Look at the 4 games where TJ Edwards was on the field. Week 6 through 9, with TJ Edwards on the field, they held opponents to 98.3 rushing yards per game, 4.1 yards per carry, under 36% success rate per rush. In their other 8 games without TJ Edwards, he actually played a little bit in the Lions game when he got hurt. They allowed 5.7 yards per carry, over 47% success rate per rush, almost 152 rushing yards per game. Now, this is probably a little bit coincidental. One linebacker does not make this much of a difference. I thought it was more interesting than anything else, but I think it's important to point out that this is a very crucial piece of the Bears defense, and when he was playing, they didn't look that bad against the run. Now, does that mean they can go into Green Bay and keep the Packers from running the ball? Probably not. Green Bay's been pretty consistent on the ground. On their last 9 games, they're averaging 4.3 yards per carry, 42% success rate per rush. They are missing their center, so maybe there's something there. But I would imagine Green Bay's able to run the ball a little bit in this game. Although the Bears defense being way healthier than it has been, I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to put up a fight. To be honest, I'm more worried about right here. The Bears haven't had a reliable pass rush this entire year, and that's a problem playing against Jordan Love because he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when you give him a clean pocket. So you definitely don't like that if you're trying to bet Chicago here. They struggle to generate pressure. Jordan Love has a 130.3 passer rating from a clean pocket. And in addition to that, they might be getting Jaden Reed back at wide receiver. That's not confirmed. He's listed as questionable. He's been out for a while as well. So in addition to they're probably not able to pressure Jordan Love in this game, they might be getting what is probably their best wide receiver back as well. So yeah, you don't like that matchup at all if you plan on betting Chicago. But I got to say, aren't we a little bit concerned with the Green Bay offense right now? We all saw Thanksgiving. They look great on the road against the Lions defense. Great game for the Packers offense. Does that mean we forget that their last 3 games at Lambeau, they're averaging 14.3 points per game? 14 points per game. In their last 3 at home, they're 1-2. And they in fact, if JJ McCarthy wasn't practical joke terrible in that game, they might have lost 3 home games in a row. They lost outright to the Panthers. They lost outright to the Eagles. And in the Minnesota game, the offense didn't even look good. They won the game because the Vikings offense was practical joke bad. 14.3 points per game in their last 3 home games. Do we trust this offense in Lambeau right now? I know that sounds crazy to even say, like, I don't trust the Packers offense in Lambeau. But their last 3 home games, they did not play well offensively. I'm a little hesitant to pull the trigger on it because I've actually lost fading the Packers back-to-back weeks. I had the Vikings and then I had the Lions on Thanksgiving. So I've actually lost back-to-back weeks fading this Packers team. I don't want to make it 3 in a row. But this Bears team, they're 8-2 against the spread in their last 10, meaning they keep getting underpriced in the market. They're one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL. Their defense is healthy. This team is 9-3. Do they have the best record in the NFC right now? I think they have the best record in the NFC right now. Give me a touchdown. kind of feels like last week when they gave me a touchdown against the Eagles. And I was like, what? Give me a touchdown with this team? The Bears should be able to run the ball. Think they'll keep it competitive. I trust Caleb Williams a lot more this year than I do last year. Bears +7. I haven't bet it yet. This is one that I'm considering. All right, I'm running out of time here. Last few games on the board. Rams, Arizona. I bet the Rams in this one. I got -7.5. I make the game 10. So if you could still get a 9.5, I'd say still might be worth a shot. I think the Rams win that one comfortably. Arizona, I think some of their final scores in recent games are misleading. That Jacksonville game, for example, they won the turnover battle 4-0 and still lost the home game. I think Arizona's in a tailspin. So, yeah, I like the Rams coming off a loss division game. I expect them to be in complete control both sides of the ball. So I did bet the Rams -7.5. What other games? Denver, Las Vegas. I really am hesitant about laying a big number with Denver. That team just doesn't win by margin, but that defense against the Raiders offense, the Raiders shouldn't be able to do anything in that game. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they forced a couple turnovers. So it would only be Denver. I don't necessarily hate an under, but it's indoors. So it would only be Denver there. Don't have a ton of interest in Denver, Las Vegas. Now, Sunday Night Football, I'm thinking about adding this one. So Texans Chiefs in Kansas City. So when I first looked at this game last week, I was like, oh, Chiefs back in Arrowhead, no brainer. Take the Chiefs. We've seen a pretty clear pattern here with the Chiefs. At home, they're 5-1 straight up, 4-2 against the spread. On the road, 1-4 and 1-4. And when it comes to Chiefs games, I've kind of just been following that pattern. Not really intentionally. I've kind of been following that pattern. I tend to shade the number a little bit more towards Kansas City at home and Arrowhead because they seem to just be a different team here at Arrowhead. So why am I considering taking Houston in this game? Well, how can we possibly trust Kansas City's offense to consistently move the ball against the Houston Texans defensive line, missing 3 starters on the offensive line? 3 starters, both offensive tackles, and Trey Smith, who's been a very important piece there on the offensive line. They're playing Houston. Arguably the best defensive line in the entire NFL. Missing 3 starters, and honestly, you could probably make an argument that those are their 3 most important players. Now, maybe Creed Humphrey, I'm not really sure, but 3 important players here on the offensive line. Those might be their 3 best offensive linemen. Keep in mind, this is probably the best defense in the NFL. They're 3rd in success rate, 1st in EPA per play. Patrick Mahomes should be running for his life in this one. And when it comes to Mahomes, he has played significantly better at home in Arrowhead this year, but his most favorable split has been making reads against the blitz and picking apart blitz packages. Well, Houston doesn't blitz. They're able to generate plenty of pressure with just their front 4. Yeah, Mahomes should really be running for his life in this one. I'd be surprised if Kansas City's able to run the ball. Missing 3 starters on the offensive line against Houston, that sounds terrible. Now, look, when it comes to Houston's offense, I've said this a number of times over the last couple of years. I don't love the idea of backing C.J. Stroud on the road. I did just take Houston last week against the Colts, and it paid off. C.J. Stroud has played significantly better at home in Houston throughout his career. This Chiefs defense has looked pretty good for the most part recently. So I'm really not in love with the matchup for Houston's offense. But you know what? Maybe it's time we start to show the Texans some credit. This team is winning football games. They're 7-2 in their last 9, 6-3 against the spread. It's not really getting talked about. Yes, Davis Mills was responsible for 3 of these wins, but this is probably the best defense in the NFL. The offense is shaky, and yeah, I don't trust them much on the road, but this defense is carrying them, and I don't know how this one's above a field goal now with the injuries to the Chiefs' offensive line. I haven't bet this one yet, but you know what? You have my word. I'll add Houston +3.5. I'm worried. Stroud on the road in Arrowhead, and Mahomes will just figure out a way. But come on, that's a field goal game. Mahomes wins that by a field goal. Give me +3.5. I'll add it. You have my word. I'm going to add this. Houston +3.5. Thanks for watching. Live shows at midnight Eastern time. As always, we're talking some college basketball. I do have NBA coming up. The spreadsheet was a little more of a mess than I thought, and then I got caught up in the conference championships. So I do have NBA coming up eventually as well. I'm up and running on Juice Reel for anyone who wants to check. I'm going to put up an announcement and show everyone how to use it, but I am up on Juice Reel. So, yeah, let's have a good NFL Sunday. Remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you guys tomorrow.